We good?
Brass. All right.
Hello everyone, James Donaldson here with The Contemporary Gentleman, and we're going to bring you another video series on buying your first pistol. Now I know with the pandemic and everything, a lot of people have realized that the government can't protect them as well as they thought, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful toward any law enforcement, but even before the rioting and all these other issues, they were in many cases already understaffed, and it's a fact of the matter that nobody can be everywhere at once. So as it stands, a lot of times citizens are technically the first responders because they're at the scene, whether it's a fire or a shooting or anything. So some knowledge and experience citizens can have to make the actual first responders' job easier is always a good thing. So in terms of concealed carry, which I always tell police, even if I'm in a place that I'm not required to, I always tell them that I conceal carry. And pretty much every time the cop has said, good for you, or I'm glad you exercised that right, things of that nature. So, all of that having been said, let's talk you getting into your first pistol. So as you're going to buy your first pistol, because that's generally what people buy for protection, as it's a little more wieldy than a lot of other weapons, even if it's not the best weapon for defense, self-defense. It's definitely easier to conceal, if that's why you're buying one. Easier to keep locked up and get to quickly if there's an intruder in your house, things like that. So, safety is the first thing you need to know, because if you're going to look at pistols at a gun counter, or you're going to shoot some pistols with a friend, or just rent them by yourself, of course having safety background is the biggest, most important thing you can have. So, I have broken it down to 3 things. I see a lot of complicated ways of talking about gun safety, and I don't understand. So again, I've broken it down to make it very simple, or as we say in the Army, Barney style. So, I want to have you imagine something for a moment, that this gun, like a time bomb, is going to go off. I don't know when, but I know it's going to go off, and I can't do anything to stop it. So what would I do with this gun to make sure that it's not going to hurt anybody when it goes off? Anyone? Well, it's pretty simple. You aim it in a safe direction, so that when the projectile comes out of here, you're controlling the explosion, which even normal guns that have triggers and not time bombs, they are nothing more than a controlled explosion. That's exactly what they are, pretty much by definition. So, in this scenario, gun's going to go off, point it in a safe direction. Well, that's pretty easy. Now, luckily, reality sets in. Guns have triggers, you get to decide. So much so that even this gun that has a manual safety, which has to be engaged when the hammer's engaged, you can take it off, but guess what? By the way, before I go banging on this gun being fake has still been safety checked. The other fake guns have been safety checked, and the real guns have also been safety checked, and with all videos that I do, the ammo is separate. So, that having been said, okay, so for that gun I have to pull the trigger to make it go boom, or just click. Here's another gun, Walther PPK. Ooh. Okay, safety's on. Pull the trigger for that one too. Let's go kind of really out there. Oh, single action. Okay. Come on. Come on. So I think you get the point, is that for any gun to go off, you have to pull the trigger. That's how they work. So how do we do something to make sure that it doesn't go off without us wanting it to, even if the safeties are off, if it has safeties, manual safeties, that is? Well, it's pretty simple. Don't touch the trigger. So the third piece of advice for safety comes from the question of, well, when do I do these things? Definitely when it's loaded. I think everyone can agree on that. But what not everybody thinks about is sometimes the gun might be loaded, pretty much at any time in any gun owner's life. I'm going to go ahead and say that they have been in a scenario where they discovered their gun was loaded when they didn't think it was. Now, whether anything bad happened or not is pretty much up to these safety guidelines. So you always treat a gun as though it's loaded. And something I even think about is when I think about what safe direction I'm pointing it in a place I'm familiar with, such as my house, bullets go through walls, believe it or not. 9mm bolts can penetrate concrete walls, depending on the type of concrete. Rifles definitely can. So, point being that what's beyond that wall even? Taking it to the next step. Imagining a laser coming out of the barrel and going through things. Now, there's obviously structures that the bullet won't move through, but the point is that you're maintaining consciousness about what you're doing. And also, in a familiar place, if you just never let yourself aim the gun at certain walls or in certain directions where people may or may not be past it, then that's going to help out. And so if your gun was ever to go off in what we call a negligent discharge of the firearm under negligence, you're at least going to mitigate the damage done. Maybe you're just putting a hole in your wall and making yourself feel horrible for what's happened, instead of actually somebody getting hurt that needed to not be hurt. So, another thing to consider with safe direction is, sometimes the safe direction is a target, and sometimes it's a threat. That's something to consider. Now, what deems something or somebody a threat? It's going to have a lot of things for you to think about. The law is a big one. Where you are. What is it? Human, animal. What the scenario is, what's happening. So that's not for me to decide, especially given that I would just be armchair quarterbacking it. Anyone can use hindsight and think out a scenario. But what's important is to have all the information you can so that when a scenario unfolds, you can react accordingly. So of course, these safety measures are really helpful. Once again, point it in a safe direction, finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot, and then do this all the time. Because the gun is always loaded, even when it isn't. So, that's about as simple as I can make it. Next video we're going to be doing is going to be going over pistol functions, how different ones operate, and of course we'll go from there on buying your first pistol and what to do when you buy it. So stay tuned. If you like the video, please subscribe to our channel, or even, if you will, just hit the, I think it's on that side, the like button down there in the buttons. That helps us out a lot. Naturally, following us on Instagram, that's free, so everybody's going to like that. And we try to post up some interesting pictures here and there, not always about gun stuff. And finally, you can subscribe to us on Patreon. We've got some different options for membership there. And as I always joke, / I'm serious, it will help us with things like production quality. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and until next time, keep your composure.